Trisha explains to you the Blind Girl Designs and Unmute Presents shirt with a
mouth exclaiming into a microphone. And there's little sound triangles coming from the mouth. And we took the sound triangles and we expanded them 10 inches all across the chest of the print. On the top triangle, in a very clean font and 3D tactile ink, is the word unmute. And the triangle is metallic silver. And underneath, the second triangle says in a font that's called rock. So it's kind of a cool, edgy font. And 3D tactile ink is the word be heard.
You can get your exclusive Blind Girl Designs and Unmute Present partnership apparel by heading over to unmute.show and choosing the Blind Girl Designs partnership link, or go to blindgirldesigns.com and search for Unmute.
Welcome, everyone, to At Your Fingertips, Braille Then and Now. I am so excited to celebrate Louis Braille, and since January is the month that he was born, we are all doing lots of celebrating for the 200th anniversary of Braille. And so today I am very excited to have with me Char Cook, and she is one of my dear friends and coworkers. And I'd like to welcome you, Char. Thanks so much for joining me.
Chris, thank you. Love being here.
That's awesome. Well, one of the reasons I invited Char onto the podcast is because I would love to interview people who have visited Louis Braille's home. And someday I would really like to do that. And it's just truly a very touching, emotional experience for the people who have been there. But first, I'd love to hear about a little bit about who you are, Char, and also about your journey with Braille.
Thank you. I am blind, and I have a retinal disease called retinitis pigmentosa, quite a common cause of vision loss. And I started to lose my sight when I was 7. And I have a rare form of RP. I lost my central vision first. So immediately, my acute reading vision, distance vision, all of that was impacted by the disease. So by the time I was 12, I could not read print at all. A huge loss to me. I lived at the library up to that point. So from age 12 to almost age 17, I was unable to read print or Braille.
Wow.
And I met a man. He was a counselor at the Oregon Commission for the Blind at that time. And he was very pro-Braille. And he said to me, "Has no one taught you to read Braille?" I said, "No." And so he said, "I'm making it my business that when you leave here at the end of the summer, you are a Braille reader." And I was. He taught me. And it was like he handed me a huge bouquet and said, "Now read again." And I was a slow reader at first, but I was able to read Braille, grade 2 Braille by the end of that summer. And
Wow.
I was handed back literacy. I was handed back the ability to read, not just be read to. And that was the beginning of my journey, Chris.
That's wonderful. I think that's fantastic that you had someone in your life who challenged you, who wanted to know, where are you now, and do you want to go on this journey of literacy and of Braille?
You know, we don't get there unless someone introduces it to us. Could be a teacher, could be this gentleman was my counselor, but it takes someone that cares deeply
Yes.
for Braille to become part of your life.
Yes. And to encourage you in all the ways it will improve your life and add to your life. And as a young person, that is just the place where we want to encourage people, especially on their whole life stretching before them.
Chris, you know, I went on to be a business owner. I was in the business enterprise program, and then went on to, my husband and I own a flower shop. Both of those businesses required reading, the numbers, the calculations, all of that. I could not have gotten that just having someone read that to me.
Right.
But having the Braille in front of me gave me what I needed to be able to be a business owner. And I did the bookkeeping for the flower shop for a lot of years. And of course, the business enterprise program, you are your own manager. You do the bookkeeping. It was Braille all the way.
Yep.
I had things transcribed into Braille. I had a machine that would transcribe into Braille early as it was.
Yes.
It hooked up to my Perkins Brailler, and then it would Braille out the sheets. It was amazing.
That's great.
And it would print them. So I had a Braille copy. My designers had a print copy. So Braille is here and now.
Yep.
And without it, I wouldn't have been able to be in the businesses I was in, or feel like they were actually my businesses. I wasn't a bystander.
Right. That is so crucial. And of course, with the, that was probably pre-computer, that kind of thing.
Oh, yes. At the beginning, yes.
Yep. But still, the accuracy and the level of detail that we can gain with the Braille is just an absolute wonder, I think. So,
the mind does tend to wander. And if you're being read to, it's fine and dandy, but your mind can wander. When you're reading it, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's going from your fingers right into the brain. So that's what
That's amazing. Well, I really appreciate you sharing a little bit about your journey and how important Braille has been and is and continues to be to what you do. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah. So about 10 years ago, you decided to take a vacation to France. And I am so excited to hear about your visit to Louis Braille's home, which is just absolutely incredible. Can you tell us about that, what you experienced, and kind of how that all came to be?
I would love to do that. So my sister, my best friend, and another friend, we went to France for 10 days. And I think each of us had something they really wanted to see or do. And there were so many things. But my main thing is I wanted to visit the Louis Braille Museum, which is outside of just a few miles away from Disney Paris. And so we took a train, a fast train from Paris city center out to where Disneyland is. And then from there we hired a taxi and went to the Louis Braille Museum. So it was 4 of us. And when we got to Disney Paris, first time I'd ever seen this in my life, they were guarding it with men carrying machine guns.
Oh boy.
And it was a little scary. So there was you're outside of Disneyland. And so, there was places to eat and all that. So we did that. Then we hired a taxi, and I had made a reservation to meet the curator of the Louis Braille Museum. So he knew we were coming, and I would advise that.
Neat.
So we're there, and then pretty soon we're out in the country. And it was still, there were no city noises, there were no anything, and the taxi driver couldn't find the museum. Now, I would have thought everybody would know where it is, but he didn't. So we had to call the curator, and he talked to our taxi driver and gave him the instructions. So we pull up in front of a humble place, I'm going to say. And it was the actual home of where Louis Braille grew up, turned now into a small museum. And then also there was the wood shop, I don't want to say wood shop, but workshop where Louis Braille and his father worked. And that's where he was blinded.
Yes.
So we got out of the taxi, and so this has been 10 years, but this is what I remember. There were pieces of art in the garden there, sort of in a courtyard. And one of them that just sticks in my mind, one of them was music notes made, I think the artwork was made of wrought iron, maybe, but it said Louis Braille. It said the day of his birth, the day of his death. And then it was a tribute to him and the music that he played. He was an organist, and also the music that he was able to transcribe into Braille. And so at that moment, we all had tears in our eyes, all four of us, because it was a moment.
Yes.
So for us, we were teary-eyed.
Yes.
Just it was such a moment, because I had told my friends and my sister how important Braille had been to me. They were ready for this, and we were all just smitten by the awesomeness of being in the presence of where Louis Braille lived and was blinded.
Wow. That is awesome. And did you get to see some of the tools or some Braille while you were there?
Yes. And so what we did then, we went into the museum with the curator. And he was very, very nice to us. And there was nobody else there but us. I think it's not nearly as popular as some, but he showed us where Louis Braille had lived. I believe where he slept. He showed us the workshop where he was blinded. He showed me an awl.
Yeah.
And what Louis Braille was probably doing when he was blinded. And then after a while, we went upstairs, and we sat down, and he showed me early forms of communication that people had been trying to sort of invent, and then sort of the procedures up to that, the different steps, and then Braille as Louis Braille put it to paper.
Yes.
It was just, I stayed a long, long time, maybe longer than expected. And my friends sort of wandered, and it was just the curator and myself, which was perfect. But I remember holding the Braille in my hands and just thinking, but for this gentleman, and I believe he was inspired to write Braille.
Yes.
I totally believe it with all my heart. And that he did it as a young man. And yes, I know it's changed today somewhat, but not very much. Isn't that right, Chris? If you look at Braille as it is.
Yep. And he created with the form of a slate and stylus, like was used probably for almost 100 years until the Perkins was developed,
And that's amazing too. And when I learned Braille, when this gentleman back at the OCB taught me to learn Braille, I only learned slate and stylus. I wasn't introduced to a Braille writer for several years.
Wow.
And I thought that's what everybody did, was slate and stylus. So just to hold his, and were they really his papers? I don't know. But to hold them in my hands in the place where he lived, and think, but for you, Mr. Louis Braille, would I be literate? Maybe, or maybe not. And then the tremendous technology that's available today is so awesome. But it began in his hands, and in his heart. I read Braille every single day, not volumes and volumes, but I read it every single day.
Yes.
And it's been such a gift to me.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And I am so excited that you were able to have that profound experience of being in the place, in the home where he lived and where he worked, and really profoundly affected the ability of all blind people who can learn Braille to have their lives impacted and it just amazingly affected by this tool of literacy.
And Chris, we also went to other museums when we were there. And the Louvre, of course, is the famous museum in Paris. Well, in the gift shop, they sold items that were inscribed in Braille.
Oh, cool.
because, of course, they understand that Louis Braille was from France and lived just outside of Paris, a few, I don't know, 20, 30 miles outside of Paris is where he lived. And so they, in their wisdom, are certainly giving tribute to Louis Braille.
Yes.
Because everybody who's blind, who can read Braille, would want to, I think, because it's the gift of reading. I just want to say this. I probably read Braille maybe 50 words a minute, 100 words a minute on a really good day. It's not very fast, but it's working for me. And I have the King James version of the Bible, which is 18 volumes. And I am reading from one of the 18 volumes every day, along with I'm a teacher, so I'm definitely keeping notes in Braille. And then just my personal journaling or whatever, that's very important to me, that is something that I can read back myself. So there's so many reasons, whether you're fast like Chris or you're not fast like Char.
It's okay.
There are so many reasons to embrace Braille and to learn to use Braille every day.
That's right. And whatever it can add and make your life better, that we'll absolutely embrace it.
Absolutely. Chris, I teach cooking, as you know, and if it's just labeling your spices, if it's putting a label on a expiration date, if it's writing yourself a note, if whatever it is worth your while to use it. My husband is not blind, and he bought himself a slate and stylus early on in our marriage. And he has a little alphabet card. And through the years, he has written me private notes in Braille.
Yes.
Sometimes he forgets that he needs to write it from right to left. He sometimes forgets that. But he's, he hasn't written volumes, but it's been precious to our relationship that he could write me a note, hand it to me, I can read it. It just added to our relationship, I think.
Absolutely. That's a precious private thing that you can share because of Braille. That's awesome. Was there anything else you would like to say for our Louis Braille tribute?
Looking back, I wished I would have learned Braille when I was 7 instead of 17. And then at age 17, I'm finishing high school, looking for work, what we all do. And I didn't use Braille as diligently as I could have until I was in my 20s. And then I had a lot going on, life, things like that. So I would say to you all, learn it. Even if you're not 7, learn it anyway. Even if you're not able to read fast, learn it anyway. And it is all about practicing and using it. It doesn't fall out of the sky and hit you on the head. It is practice for sure.
Yes.
But so worth it. So worth it. And then I'll ever be grateful to Mr. Braille for the gift he gave to me personally and then to the world.
Thank you so much for sharing your fond remembrances of your visit to the Louis Braille Museum and all that Braille has meant to you. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Char.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.